Games you deserve.
Welcome to Games You Deserve, brought to you by Special Reserve Games. This week on the show, we talk about which games we've been playing lately, plus we'll dive into the DNA of collecting. I've been playing Shining Force 2 on my Mega SG, which that's so much fun to go back and play the old Genesis stuff. And so I pulled out Shining Force 2 a while back, and I'm not doing it in one long setting. You know, I'm playing it in little bursts. So now Smitty probably hasn't played this game, right? You haven't played Shining Force games, have you?
Is it one of the secret bunkers in Warzone?
Yeah, no, that's I know that's all you do.
And then I haven't played it. Yeah,
this is like an older game on the Genesis, and it's a tactical RPG where you have a group of guys, a group of players on your team of different character types. So some of them are like knights, some of them are wizards, some of them are monks, or centaurs, that type of thing, and they all have different abilities. And when it's battle time and you're faced off against an enemy, it's a big giant play field that's drawn out into essentially squares, and each player can move a certain number of squares, and when you are in attack range of your enemy, you can initiate attack, and then whatever the attack for that one is, because you might have an archer, let's say. And so, they're 2 spaces away. You can fire your arrows at the enemy, and it'll do the math for you and show you a little animation, and you play against it. But behind the scenes, behind the play mechanics of that, it's an RPG. So you're kind of going from area to area, learning story, that type of thing. It's one of the classics. It's probably one of the best classic tactical RPGs there is on older systems. And the Shining Force series is definitely a favorite of mine. 1 and 2 were on the Genesis / Mega Drive, and then the third one came out on the Sega Saturn. And in the United States, we didn't get all the discs that Japan got. So if you have a Saturn, if you wanted to play like the extra scenarios and that type of thing, you had to get a Japanese one, or you had to mod your Saturn and then play a Japanese copy on there, that type of thing, which kind of sucks.
That's too bad. Yeah, I wonder why that happened.
Well, the Saturn, wasn't quite as popular here, and then there's the translation that a game has to go through with localization to come across. And I mean, Smitty, we deal with things about translation, localization on games at times.
I'm going through it right now, trying to. Did you ever know that the words "Mother Russia bleeds" do not have a translation that anybody can agree on, for Russian language? We've asked
in
5
Russian?
different. Yeah, yeah. Like Mother Russia is bleeding, but it means like there's death happening, and like that's the closest we can get. So something about, by the way, just those specific 3 words do not translate into Russian.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
for a game that's
ironic,
called Mother
very
Russia Bleeds.
ironic.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that for an alternate, for an interior cover spine.
Yep.
Eric, we were going to do the just the Russian translation of the game, and just simple. That's I'm not trying to translate the 100,000.
No,
words.
you just want the 3 words. Boom.
But those 3 words don't go together. So I guess it'd be like if we said, apple slice jackass, like that. That's like how it translates apparently over there. They're like, what are you trying to say? We're just trying to say Mother Russia bleeds. Well, that's not what it says, So anyway, it's kind of strange. Yeah. Translation.
Yeah. Localization is such a weird beast. So Dan, what are you playing?
Well, I bit the bullet and got myself a Nintendo Switch a couple weeks ago. And
welcome aboard.
Thank you. And so I've got like a package deal that came with Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. I tried both. I started with Super Mario Odyssey, and it's fun.
They're like two of the best games ever, dude.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of started with Super Mario Odyssey, and I really kind of enjoyed that. And I know I'm late to the party here. This has been out for years, and people have already gone through the games and found everything. But the minute I plugged Breath of the Wild in, I've not been able to put that down for weeks now. It's insane how good that game is.
Yeah.
And I was never really a huge Zelda fan. Like I played the older games, a little bit. I didn't always finish them. And I'm aware of all the stuff that kind of happens around that, but I never really have gotten into a Zelda game as much as I have enjoyed Breath of the Wild, because it's just so huge. Like the game is just immense. The amount of work put into that, building that world, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, what's crazy is that those games were released within the same year and faced each other for Game of the Year. Yeah. And it's a Mario and a Zelda. How often ever would that happen? That
yes.
Those two games of that caliber release in the same year and face each other for that, and they're both incredible games. I mean, what you ended up with was kind of the perfect storm for Nintendo as a company, right? You kind of don't want that in a sense because you're competing with yourself, but at the same time, it's not like they were released at the same time during the year.
Well, they were technically, I think Odyssey was a launch title. Breath of the Wild had come out for the Wii U already, right? They were already
other way around.
What?
Breath of the Wild was actually a launch title and launched simultaneously for the Wii U and the Switch on the same day that the Switch was released. Odyssey came later in the year.
Oh,
but yeah, I mean, there was a gap, but still in the same year, groundbreaking games. Odyssey, though, is as great as it is. You're right. There's this big difference between the two. You go to Breath of the Wild, and you've got this very different Zelda than what you're used to. Right? It's definitely open world. It's got to me the physics engine that is fantastic. You end up with these interactions between the environment, the items, the character, that all feels very, very natural. The best example I can think of that is that when you're in or standing near a body of water that has fish in it, if you want to kill the fish and it's raining and there's thunder and lightning, one thing you can do is grab a metal item you have, like a sword or a shield that's metal. You can take that, throw it into the water, and then when the lightning strikes that metal item, the fish in the water will die. Because
I didn't know that.
Yeah, lightning will hit the water. All of that.
That's awesome.
It's not like they coded that specific thing. They just coded everything to have the interactions you would imagine. Lightning attracted to the metal, and then having lightning in the water killed the living things that were in it.
Oh, crap. I just thought of something. Then I have this lightning rod that I got when I fought off this crazy thing that was floating around zapping me. So I have this little, it's not a very good weapon. It doesn't look, it's only got like a 5 rating, but I think I could shoot electricity with it. So I could just do it myself, right? I could probably just do that and zap a pond and get all the fish out of it.
Yeah, I mean, but lightning's going to be stronger, like actual the one from the sky. But I mean, the idea is that when they coded this engine, it generally makes sense in what would really happen. It's the same reason why when lightning hits the grass on the plains in the game, there's fire, right?
Yeah.
Because after lightning strike, that's what you have. And it shows that in the game. I think that's the stuff that makes that game even more brilliant. I will agree with a lot of the fan base, though, that the lack of dungeons in the game is something that's missing. It would be nice
Yeah.
to have the classic Zelda dungeons.
They've got those shrines with the puzzles and that kind of stuff, but it's not the same. And
No, it's not the same.
You're right. There should be more dungeons. But anyway, I'm having a great time with it. It's been like pretty much everything I've been doing. I was in the process, almost finished Metal Gear Solid, which I have on my PlayStation Classic. And then what's you holding up? Oh, there you go. Smitty's holding it up to
He's
the
got
camera
his
for us to see.
Breath of the Wild cartridge right
There you
there.
go. Yeah. So I was almost done Metal Gear, and then I just dropped it to start playing Breath of the Wild. So I have to go back to Metal Gear and finish that. But it's such a good game. And there's so much. Like, I'm just getting started. I'm already like I'm a certain degree, and I've already got one of the divine beasts going.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy. You move on to the next world, and it's so different. I'm in the hot lava world or whatever the hell it is. The very hot, and I burned up.
There
I didn't have the proper clothing.
I think what ultimately just makes that game so brilliant is not. I mean, it's not flawless. There's definitely gaps and there's definitely issues with it, but you see what you can do, and you see how they coded each interaction with the people and the environments. And like I said, that's what makes that a brilliant game. The things you think you can do, you can pretty much do. And it makes sense. It acts the way you would imagine. You get in cold weather, you get cold. And the less clothes you have on, the colder you get, and the faster. It's all of those little things which are brilliant. So
and you can't climb when it's raining, which sucks.
Reminds me of Warzone. You know,
what a segue! Look at that.
In Warzone, you can buy different skins and weapons, and it sounds almost like the same game. But I've also been playing Carry On because there's a beta demo, if you will, that's been going around for quite a while. But because I know people, because I know people, we have special codes that we can see current versions of the game. Hello, and that thing is pretty fun. I mean, I didn't really know. It looked beautiful. I didn't know if the mechanics of the game, how the monster flows, through, if that would be like, I'm going to use basic words like intuitive, whatever. But would it make sense on a PC, or would it, I want to plug in a controller, to my PC. I try to play all my games on PC, because I'm an old PC gamer, I mean, I have a Switch, but man, like Warzone, I would never even think about playing it on a console, nor would I play it with a controller. And I know there's plenty of people who like controllers, but I mean, WASD and my mouse, man, that's all I, and the space bar. That's all I really need, right? But that's how I play first person shooters for sure. But anyway, so big love to Warzone. I mean, I have a couple people that we play with. I like Plunder Quads. I like Blood Money. I wish they'd bring back duos for Blood Money or Plunder, because now they went to trios. Now it's at quads. And still, like JR from Devolver, he and I, or Jason that works with us, we can go in as duos into quads, and still, we haven't finished first, but we finished as high as second place, doing that. So we hustle. And then, Battle Royale is just a whole other animal. But they had Battle Royale Classic, and if you aren't a BR fan, I won't get into the whole thing, but BR Classic was pretty fun as well. So, man, I'm having a lot of fun with Warzone. It's kind of weird. I had this talk with a couple of people. We play with, Nigel and a couple of great guys, Nigel from Devolver. And, it's always interesting to hear people who see a lot of games start getting addicted to just this one game. And that's something weird. Just for a few of us, Warzone is like kind of that game. We didn't make it. I don't know anybody at Infinity Ward. And I think I know one guy that used to be at Raven, back in the day, like no connection to this game at all. And I barely play Call of Duty games normally, in general at all, but something about Warzone, maybe it was because it was free.
That always helps.
Yeah, I mean, it was free, but so it made the barrier of entry very low. But it was something that a couple of us, and especially young guys, older guys, all kinds of, I hear some girls in there too. I say guys in general to human beings, but all ages are in there, and there's no rhyme or reason why each of us are so addicted to it. But there's a group of us that, this is our thing. And sometimes we do work together and we like to play games. And so we merge them, and we lovingly call this Work Zone. And so we say, hey, like it could be in the middle of the afternoon. Like, hey, you guys want to work zone for about 20 minutes? We're at work zone for an hour? Yes. You want to work zone for 2 rounds? Yes. And there's actually work zoning that's getting done. I just want to point that out. So anyway, that's what I'm playing. Carry on a little bit of Fall Guys beta. And you're playing that too, little Eric.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with that on release and how many people jump in, and that's going to be nonstop action right there with Fall Guys, nonstop. Nice. So
going to be fun.
I wanted to add one other thing. Tomorrow, the 3rd Switch in my household will arrive. I got really lucky and was able to snag one right off of Best Buy, retail price, no other games, didn't have to buy any extra games. For the wife, and she's going to start playing some games. I spent some time today going through the collection and plucking out ideas and saying, okay, you like this, try this. You like that, try this. And I got a whole list of stuff, and she went out and started going on YouTube and looking at trailers and was like, oh yeah, that's totally me, or I'm not sure about this one. And I'm over here going, yeah, just try it,
See,
So.
I think you're discovering a whole new job there. It's called Erik the Game Concierge.
Well, no,
no, I'm being 100% serious. Like you need people to know your personality, know your things that you like and don't like from what you just told me now, and then be able to give you recommendations toward games, because most of the algorithms, like on Steam or something, they're just sales tools. Those aren't really, even Amazon, who I used to trust to only serve me the items that it really thought I needed. You just, but yeah, there is so many great games out there, especially the indie games, right?
You've seen the pictures of the shelves where I have all the games, right? I've set it up a little bit like the old Blockbuster kind of thing, where it's got them all, kind of set out. And I was thinking maybe I'll rearrange a little bit and put a couple of shelves there with a little sign, Eric's recommendations.
That's right. Yeah,
we used to do that. I'll have the selections there. Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah, just
That's
take
awesome.
a picture and post that each week.
I will also say that yesterday was my daughter's birthday, and we got her a Switch Lite and Animal Crossing. So
what
she
color?
Is yellow.
Hey, that's exactly what Smitty has.
Well, they only had yellow and gray, and I'm like, well, she'll want some kind of color. So, but yeah, she really wanted Animal Crossing, so we got her that Animal Crossing. So now she's kind of stuck into that game, and I'll have to check in with her.
So what color Switch do you have?
I just have the regular one.
The regular one.
Yeah,
the blue and the red controllers.
And my Joy-Cons.
The blue and red.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got the blue and red and the yellow in your house. Smitty's got the yellow light over there.
And the black. My Switch is just the regular.
The gray.
The gray. Yeah. Not colored.
And you're talking about color for all these things. I got the original gray one. When we got my son we got the gray one. That's the Pokemon Light one, but it's still gray. And then when I got my wife hers, the gray. Everything's gray. I got no color in my life. It's just gray. So,
but see, then it's a good base for you to build upon. So like your travel bag, it could be fuchsia and it wouldn't clash.
That's right. No clashing. I wouldn't have to worry about that.
See, so
and you can always buy new Joy-Cons and change the color up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. See, there's a simple pleasure.
You're stretching that one a little bit.
Black and gray. I mean, most of the
I
clothes,
like the basics. I like the basics.
most of the clothes in my closet are black or black.
Same.
I do have a blue shirt on that is today because it's a Return of the Jedi shirt. But
and I have to commend you on that. At least it's original trilogy right there.
Keep your distance, though, Chewie. But don't look like you're trying to keep your distance. I don't know. Fly casual.
Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't have all my systems hooked up to my TV. I've only got I think 2 systems right now hooked up to my TV, and I don't keep them all hooked up, but I still keep, I've got my old Xbox 360 and stuff like that. My son dug up the old Wii, or original Wii, which I have not hooked up forever, but he's going down memory lane with these games, and these are the games that, the Wii came out the same year he was born in 2006. So he's all these games he played as a 5-6-year-old. So he's playing all these old Bakugan games and Mario Party and stuff like that. And I just kind of made me realize that that's his childhood system, right? It's interesting to me that system is the one he's growing up with. So it's like same as our Super Nintendo or Nintendo.
Yeah, you know what you're going to need to do? You're going to need to take all that stuff, though, and pack it away later when they get bored again, and then dig it out in another 10 years.
Well, that's what my mom packed up my 2600 and my 5200, and she put each in their own box, each with their own games, and she labeled it, and she kept it at her house until I got married and I had my own house. And then she said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of your stuff that I want to give you, and now that you've got an attic to put it in, it'd be nice." And so what she brought down was that, plus all my Star Wars toys and my G.I. Joe toys. And she had kept all that stuff. And so, some of it was heavily played with. And then she had some like Star Wars that were still in blister packs, man.
No way.
She absolutely, and I asked her, she told me about those. And she said, I always thought that these would be valuable. And she goes, "I remember your father was not happy, with all the toys I was getting you, but I knew that these were an investment," and that she would get, there were some that stayed in blister packs and then some for me to play with. So anyway, I don't have like a whole complete set of every character ever made in blister packs or whatever, but yeah, that was my mom, who was a public school English teacher, who saw a value in the collectability of those Star Wars the Kenner, figurines.
Now we'll get into the thing in video games in a second as far as collectibles go, but is there a value to the original? Like, I have an original Wii. It's the one that was
Ask Eric.
I mean, there's probably millions and millions of them out there, right? This was like the most popular console ever.
Yeah, the original Wii, there were so many of them made. I mean, the only time it was really valuable was about the first 3 months.
Right.
And then they made 100 million of them. So if you want one, you could pretty much, plunk down $10.50 for it now. In
all those designer colors too, white and white and white.
And wait, red.
Oh,
they did make a red
one.
Was
the red? Yes, that's right. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and they hadn't quite figured out when the whole color schematic thing. Now, of course, you've got every system available in every color under the rainbow.
Well, Nintendo does that with all the Joy-Cons, right? I mean, you see all these Joy-Cons. There's 30 different kinds of Joy-Con color out there that you can buy from whatever region you want. But they haven't been great on doing that with systems. However, look at how many special edition PlayStation whatever, or there's 50 PS4s of different styles. Microsoft does it.
Hey, but just do me a favor. I'm curious about the PS4. Go through from PS1. Can you name the system, including the mobile ones? Name them in order. Do it, Eric.
Of each of the systems?
Sony
systems, starting with PlayStation 1 and including mobile.
Including mobile. Okay,
and you can call it Vita or Vita. We won't hold it against you once you get there. But
order is going to be a little difficult for me because that's not my strong suit. But what? What are you trying to call me out on, Sony?
I can't do it.
I just know that you were just one of those students in class. I was just like, God dang it.
Yeah, I sat in the back. I sat in the back for sure. No, because I had a PS1, I had a PS2, I had a PSP. I still have a PS3. It's sitting in a cabinet right now. But I didn't get rid of the PS3, and it was the fat too. It wasn't the reduced size. It was an actual original 60 gig PS3. I didn't have a Vita. I don't know why I missed out on that. Plus the PSPs and the Vita, and there's different models of that because you had the original fat PSP, right? Right. And they redid that a couple of different times. Plus you had the PSP Go. There's also the PS TV. obviously the PS4, PS4 Pro, the upcoming PS5. The only thing I didn't really like about Sony with their systems was they always had proprietary memory card format for their portable stuff. So you had to buy the damn Sony stick for that.
Exactly. Oh, the Sony stick.
Well, that goes back to the original PlayStation. They always had those memory cards and stuff you had to get for that. So,
but I at least with those though, those had like their roots in earlier systems that had proprietary memory stuff, because like the Dreamcast has the VMUs that would plug into the controllers, and you had like the different systems had different memory packs that would plug in different ways. So there's kind of a lineage of that. But when you got to the portables, Sony kind of stuck, even though SD cards and compact flash were all common, they stuck to their own proprietary Sony cards. And so the same memory, you could buy like, this is kind of dating things, but like a whole like 16 meg memory thing, a stick for them. Their proprietary little memory card costs like 5 times what an SD card would have cost.
I see. Okay.
So they forced you into that. But eventually, like, people came up with clever ways to make little adapters where you could take like a micro SD and stick it in the adapter and then plug that in.
Sounds like someone had a side business in college. No? Okay.
No.
Wasn't you?
No.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't.
I wasn't that smart. I wasn't that smart to do
Dan's
that.
Canadian, so whatever he did, he is not liable for probably half the laws that we have down here.
That's very true, actually. And in fact, my Wii the Wii that I just mentioned, it's actually I don't know if it's jailbroken or whatever. I've got the homebrew thing on it because
he's hacked it.
So listen. It's a 14-year-old system.
Broke it out of jail.
I'm calling the cops.
And but the reason I had to do this, I told you guys in a previous episode that I purchased Xenoblade Chronicles. I was mistaken. It was actually the original Xenoblade Chronicles, not Xenoblade 2, for the Wii, but that was never released in North America, right? So that one I have is the version from Europe, and I had to do that to my Wii to be able to play it on my Wii. So that's another game my son was playing over the weekend as well. He fired up that one and started playing Xenoblade Chronicles again, which is an excellent game.
Game. But I'm not worried, Bob. I'm with you, and you're the best.
Hey, you're no hack yourself, Doc. No game can stop a team like us.
I was doing Nokia work when helping them launch the Engage and the Engage QD, which were they were the first cellular devices that were made specifically for gaming. And then they also had a device called the 3300, which was all blue, and that was for music. And so they had like QWERTY keyboards on that one because it was made.
It was like it flipped up, and you could have the keyboard on the side of it.
These were all US based. There were some European models, but look at the N, and so it's Engage. N as in Nancy -GAGE, Engage and Engage QD. And then the 3300, 3300 for the music.
Oh, wow. Oh, look at this thing. That looks cool,
and
man.
These were cartridge based.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was, with those, they didn't, I think we covered this in a previous episode, where they didn't have the network for the store. They didn't have an iTunes. iTunes wasn't even launched yet. An iPod didn't exist yet.
It wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing. But therefore the store where everybody went, Facebook didn't exist. I think MySpace was around, but
sure.
There was very few like community points, but it was mainly a portal for how to disseminate, how to sell that content, how to get rid, whether it was music, movies, or video games, or just.
And it was a phone as well. Was it also
a phone? Great phone. It was a Nokia phone. And Nokia phones, number one, had battery life for days. Battery life for days. So my daughter, who's now 17, has seen some of these phones that I was working on in 2004. And she was very much a child, baby, and. That was a motorcycle, and
lunch.
Who's coming by? But what she found my old drawer of these phones, because I just kept all these phones. I was never a guy that traded my cell phones in to get another phone. I would just buy phones. So I was either buying unlocked phones from Europe, and this was back when it was either code division or time division. It was CDMA or TDMA networks. It was Sprint, it was AT&T. You didn't have 4G, we didn't have 5G. None of that was even, there were no Gs. There was no G. But but anyway, so it was, data was also very slow over all this. And I think that was probably part of the reason. But nonetheless, the collectability, the value of these phones, they seem to never increase, if you will, but they maintain a aesthetic value, to certain people. Like, I kept these phones because I think they're beautiful designs. I thought they were really neat. I can look back at them and that represented my first year at Gathering of Developers, or, I bought that phone, the year I got married, or, something like that. So each one of those phones kind of marked something and then once the gaming element came in with the cell phone with Nokia, that was just the coup de grace for me, man. And but so anyway, I kept all those phones. My daughter's fascinated by them, so she's a Generation Z kid. She looks at those things like they're the coolest thing ever, and if they would work, she would love it, but she doesn't necessarily want to use it as a phone. She sees it as like a museum piece. And so my question, a
gaming system,
yeah, it's a gaming system, museum piece. It's like an OG thing that and it kind of does show the evolution. So like, either one of you guys, if you look back at one of your older systems, I mean, there's your value that you hold of whatever game system you've been lugging around for 20 years or 30 years. You think it's worth, I don't know, it's not worth money. We don't think of stuff as worth, that's probably worth $100. That's probably worth $500.
No, it's worth memories.
Yeah, exactly. It's worth my memories. And I know I still have it, and it's mine. It's actually mine. I'm not looking at a picture. I'm not looking at yours and saying, I had one like that. I'm like, no, that's mine. So there's kind of a weird, that's the collectability of some of these games and some of the physical stuff. And then it parlays into the into the cell phone world, through that Nokia connection, with the Engage devices. But that was about it, because I rarely play games on my phone. I can, in an old man way, I look at some phone games as just a waste of time. It's like,
I think that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. But I look at them like that, and I'm like, sure as heck would not want to pay to waste my time.
Right.
I'd rather be sending emails or text or looking at stupid memes that changed the world, and just until I can get back to my computer.
Those N-Gage phones came at the strangest time too, when you think about how that worked, because it was right towards the end of the life of those kinds of phones, like that static hard button device, right? I mean, you saw these. It was
all operating system driven.
Yeah.
That was the Symbian
operating system from Nokia, and they sort of. They got lucky in a sense that they figured out how to make that and put that out before the death of that type of phone. But it was still a little late. It was still just a little bit too late. Had that happened a couple of years earlier, there would have been a little bit more life to those, and who knows what would have come from that. I did have an N-Gage, and somewhere I have a picture I can prove that. It was just a cool device. I can't tell you the difference between them. Mine was the one that kind of looked like it was shaped almost like a smile and had the buttons like that. You probably...
I've got one sitting over here.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably know which one that is of those. Yeah, that's the one that I own.
If it had orange on it,
I couldn't tell you that right now. I don't remember it.
That also, don't forget, that was when the color combination of orange and blue, that was like cutting edge, and freaking everything became orange and blue highlights.
And now that just gets overused in movie posters.
Yeah, it reminds me of Ocean Pacific shirts that I wore when I was a young fat kid.
Ocean Pacific, definitely.
OP.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the value of all this,
Well, I was going to ask Eric, you've been collecting video games for most of your life. When did you start kind of realizing that that's something you were doing? Like, I know you played video games, but did you just keep your systems and start the collection there? Or how did
I was worried you were going to start putting numbers on how long I've been doing it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I assume
I'm
that most of
old,
your
but
most of your adult life,
4 years,
right? But was it like Smitty said, when his mom kept all his GI Joes and Star Wars figures? Did you just keep the systems you had as a kid and build from there? Is that how you started your collection?
I am jealous of what. I don't know what Smitty's doing right now. I'm jealous of the fact that his mom had some foresight to sock some of that away.
Most people didn't at the time. Yeah, most people didn't think of that.
I blew my own chances to do that. I ended up selling a lot of that stuff when I was a kid on my own, but most of the time it was to raise it to buy whatever the next one was. I mean, just like a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
You had the Nintendo and the stockpile of 20 games or whatever, right? And then you took that down to wherever store and you turned it in for that Super Nintendo or the Genesis or whatever the next. You took what your stockpile was and you turned it in probably for the next thing. It wasn't necessarily as common for a lot of people. And I do know a few collectors that they kept every box, kept every manual, kept every insert, and they just, put that stuff in a box somewhere. But those guys are few and far between. Almost everybody didn't do that.
I had a neighbor who loved to collect my video games.
Yeah.
But he never seemed to have any of his own. Didn't you have a friend like that?
Yeah.
He was like,
yeah.
Don't you remember that day? Let me borrow that game. And you're like, okay.
And you knew what that meant. You knew what that meant eventually.
Sure,
Just
it's like, I'll
give me the game is all you're asking for.
Or when we go over to somebody's house, I seriously remember having these conversations. I'm having a flashback now from, 6th grade where it was like, hey, Dan, you want to? Or I'm having a sleepover tonight. Do you want to come over? And you say, yeah. And then you say, can I bring Eric? You say, yeah. Eric's got a Super Nintendo. Yeah. Tell him to bring a Super Nintendo over. Like those were the days where let's go stay the night at Eric's because he has a PlayStation. Like those were decisions that actually meant something. Back in the youth. Yeah. And but let me borrow that game. When's the last time you've heard that one from anybody? I mean, even as an adult, how many friends of yours, hey, let me borrow that movie? You're like, no, buddy, you can buy it yourself because I'll never see it. I'll never see it again. And if I do come over and I ask for my game back, you act like I'm a selfish butthole. And I was just like, so those are the games. Remember this, people.
I haven't finished it yet. What do you mean? I'm still working on it.
Yeah, you moved. You moved to another state.
Completely across the country. Exactly. Yeah, I think everybody had that friend.
So, Eric, when did you start collecting in earnest, would you say? Like when you actually say, I'm now a video game collector, I'm going to start keeping these? Or was it just something you started doing?
And what's your end game, too? Like, how did you establish that, right? Like, what's the end game for you, too? Beyond being...
I mean, to be honest, I went through this period of time where once I became an adult and realized, I now actually have some money to spend on that type of thing. I went and started looking backwards in my life and going, what do I miss? What did I have that I miss having? What shouldn't I have gotten rid of? Yeah, Smitty's flashing his Amex Black at us here.
Dangerous cards.
Yeah. The temptation is there though when you realize that you have grown up and you can go back. So I went back and I got that Odyssey 2 again, and I went back and I got that NES again, and I went back and I got
why?
that.
Why did you do it? To fulfill a childhood emptiness in your soul, or just because you wanted it and you wanted to play it now?
I missed having them. I mean, when you look at what gaming was for our generation. There was that we were the first. We were the first kids to have that, right?
We invented video games.
Pretty much.
We did. Started with Nolan Bushnell invented video games.
But he was an adult. He was an adult when we were children. Yeah. So the previous generation invented it. We were the ones to grow up with it.
And we're the ones that forced our parents to spend the money on that. I mean, we all whined and bitched and complained so much that they did it, right? And so we as a generation made it popular. And it's lived on ever since. And now we're in the positions to be able to do the things like make the games and bring the games to the people and talk about the games and all that. So, for me, looking back, once I had that opportunity, it was like, oh man, I really miss having that. And there's, as much as I do love emulation and I do love, remakes and all that sort of thing. But as much as I love those, I also love playing the originals. So having the ability to go out and go pick up that Odyssey 2 and grab a copy of Pickaxe Pete.
That must have been hard to find. Was that hard to find?
It really wasn't at the time.
Okay.
Because that's a little bit more obscure, but still common enough, so it was like, not too many people were looking for it. It's pretty easy to find it when it was out there. But, that's kind of what started that for me, is to go look back and say, oh God, I kind of wish I had that again. And so I went and got it again. And that was kind of the beginning of my collector's journey. It really wasn't, it wasn't when I was a kid, although that planted the seeds.
And it's not our collection, it's my collection. No offense.
Do you collect things because of the value, the monetary value, or do you collect because you want to have a physical possession that reminds you of something else?
I feel very strongly about this one, because anybody that's collecting, whether it be toys or video games or whatever, for monetary value, it's a terrible investment. You have to buy, like if you're going to go out and you're going to buy a bunch of different things for a collectible reason in an investment stance, you end up spending so much on all the ones that aren't going to be worth anything. They're going to end up, being a bunch of dust collectors on your shelf for a lot of those things. And frankly, to me, that's just not the motivation that I could see myself doing this. There has to be a love for what you're doing in order to really want to collect it. And there are ways that you can lose that love too. I was going really, really hard on the Switch collecting, and there was, God, I got to stop looking at Smitty when I say things like that. I was going really hard into the Switch collecting for all the different games that had English on the cartridges. And the first year, easy, no problem. Second year was definitely tougher, but managed to stick with it. And the third year, I didn't make it all the way. There was so many releases. There was so much material made that I couldn't keep up. And I took a really hard look at what I was doing and what I wanted to do, where I wanted to spend my money, where I didn't. And I've changed my strategy on that, which is something that I think a lot of people that collect things for nostalgia purposes go through at some point in time. They take a look at what their strategy has been, why they're doing it, and what they're doing, and sometimes just reevaluate that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolute good reasons to change what you're collecting. And I'm sitting here.
What did you change? What's your new trajectory? Don't keep us waiting any longer.
To be honest, I don't know that I've found the new trajectory yet. I'm still kind of in a space right now where that's kind of in the air for me.
So just explain a little bit. What about these cartridges made them special? They had English on the cartridges?
Yeah, originally the goal was to pick up each of the Switch games that had playable English right off the cart. So, living in North America, I was going to start with the ESRB rated stuff and then fill in around that from other regions. So if the game didn't come out in the United States, I'd import it. So I've got Japanese games, I've got European games from the UK, from Germany. I've got Korean copies here. It just whatever was available out there that was not released in the United States. Because I thought it would be just really cool to have this massive library of Switch games that was available, because the Switch has such a broad library. It grew in a lot of different directions really quickly, and there's a lot of remasters. There's a lot of newer games. It's got a great mix. But just sheer volume became untenable for me. I couldn't keep up, so I stopped. And yeah, I'm kind of in this weird phase right now of trying to figure out which direction I want to go. I did know that there were some things that I wanted to do. I want to go. I really enjoy the products that Analog is putting out with some of their consoles. They're kind of new high-end HDMI connectable versions of things like an NES or a Super NES or a Genesis, that type of thing. So I'm putting a little energy into that. I also started going into modding old systems. So I picked up a Dreamcast, which I've owned before, and it's a great system. But modern television doesn't have the inputs for that, or you have to like get a little box to go in between. So I've modded my Dreamcast to have native HDMI using a wonderful hardware mod. And they now call that the DC Digital. I want to actually give a little props to the guys that work on that. I think that they're doing some amazing work there. The kind of collector flame in me is starting to look in a different direction, and I don't really know where it's going to take me just yet. I do know that I will still pick up some Switch games, but I think it'll probably be stuff that I just have more of a desire to play and not just have on the shelf.
Yeah, see, I would say like the only thing I've really collected in depth was when I had a comic collection when I was younger. And my reason for collecting those comics was because I loved the stories. I read the stories. I wanted to see what happened next. I bought the next issue, and I did that with like dozens of titles, mostly Marvel comics, to be fair. I don't know why. You're either a DC guy or a Marvel guy, I find, is you kind of gravitate toward one or the other. And I was a Marvel Comics kid. And then I lost all that. It got destroyed in a flood 20-something years ago. 97, flood in 97. It's a huge thing here.
If I say Cry Me a River, is that too cruel?
Yes, it is, because it was a river. It was really bad. The entire almost the whole city was underwater. But anyway, but once I lost it, I had no desire to rebuild it. It was like, you know what? I'm going to move on. I'm going to do something else. And I guess I kind of moved more into the realm of DVD collection. I was at the time I was working at Blockbuster Video, so I could buy movies for discount and stuff, so I'd buy DVDs and stuff, and I kind of moved to that, but it never got as big as my comic collection did. So you just kind of lose, I guess, you lose interest and you move on after a while, right? You just have to kind of change what you're doing to keep yourself interested in it.
I think there's a lot of different reasons to change, to switch directions. It's really unfortunate. I make a joke, but it was really unfortunate that you had to lose that kind of investment because
I didn't think of it as an investment,
well,
though. I was
a personal investment.
I just kept them. I just kept them. Like it's not like I read them, put them back in their bag, and I'd bring them out every once in a while and read them again, just like you would with any other book or anything like that. But you don't think of it in terms of money. You just say, okay, well, this is my entertainment for the week. I'm going to go buy my comic books. Instead of going to the movies or going to a sporting event, that's what you did, and that's kind of how I justified it. But yeah, then at the point where it all got wiped out, the cost of comics had gone up, right? It was way more expensive. A lot of the stuff I bought when I was a kid was like 99 cents an issue or something like that.
Now you can spend $5 on an issue.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's I can't. I do read digitally. I read some comics digitally, and I also take comics to the library. Our local library here has a great selection of like graphic novels and trade paperbacks, and I'll go there and pick out some, and it's a lot of fun. So that's how I kind of scratched that itch. But as far as collecting things, when I think about like what you did with your collection of like retro systems, it's almost like you're building a museum, right? Like a video game museum.
Kind of. I kind of did. I had them all displayed in a nice wire rack. That ended up, being like a really cool piece to kind of have on display. The idea of seeing them on a shelf was part of that appeal. It's like, oh man, remember that? And being able to share that with people, somebody comes over, because I used to host these great poker games at the house where I had all this sort of thing set up.
Back when poker was a big deal. Remember when poker was fun? When that whole thing happened in like the early 2000s and everyone loved poker.
Texas Hold'em was a thing.
That's right.
That's what we would play, some Hold'em. But I'd get to have all these friends come over and they'd see them. Oh yeah, I remember that. That was cool.
Prepackaged Star Wars characters still in their display box? Are those the limited edition action figures?
What's a diorama?
Why, it's Luke and Obi-Wan and my favorite Chewy. They're all here.
My collecting is very cyclical. I'll go through these things where I'll pick a bunch of stuff up and then I'll sell it to do something else. I almost always turn that into some other thing. Like a lot of those old consoles I turned into building my arcade cabinet. And I wouldn't trade that, you know?
Yeah, no, because I think part of your collection, Eric, was like at the beginning when I first met you, it was the mass of your collection that was your collection. You know, it was like that was kind of like the backdrop for, or the street cred, the legitimacy of you saying, yeah, I am a big time collector. And then here, look, here's a picture, you know, and you could show there, I do have everything I said that I have. And so like there, when I first met you, I remember let's say the perceived value of your collection from someone on the outside was that you had every single thing, you know, that the size of what, and so, and then I, you know, knowing you over the years here, seeing how what you were talking about with changing how you're collecting, that's what I was asking you earlier, like the end game, you know, is there an end game to you of, well, one day I'm going to sell all this? I think, you know, you were talking about it being a bad investment if that's your initial purpose, you know, and so I don't think that's your end game, right, is to sell this and make $10,000, you know, extra or something, you know.
It can't be that. It can't be that. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So, and we just, I do want to throw in a plug real quick. This collector's therapy session brought to you by NVIDIA or Creative Labs. Here, we could do whichever one.
Creative Labs. There we go. Let me go back. Let me go get my sound blaster out of the box.
Oh, yes. That's funny. I'll get my Voodoo 2 Extreme video card and graphics
with
card.
SLI when it meant scan line interleave.
I've not interface.
No.
Yeah, no, it's there you go, kids. Look up those names.
Yeah.
I think everybody who collects something, it's an extension of their fandom of that thing. So whatever it is you collect, you do it because you love it and you want to kind of celebrate it and show off to people that you're celebrating it and just kind of scream from the rooftops that you love this thing. And for you as Nintendo, and that kind of came into other video games and other systems, I do agree that it's very cool to see systems on display. You don't even have to play them for those old systems. You can just see them kind of out nicely. I remember going to World of Nintendo in New York when I went there, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and they had like a museum of all the different Nintendo systems going back to the original Famicom and all that stuff. And they had, one of the things they had there that I thought was really cool is they had a Game Boy that had been blasted in the Gulf War.
It still works.
It still works, and they had that on the under glass. It was on and playing the game and on the demo, and I'm like, that's so cool that they have that, and that kind of stuff is, I find, really cool. That's history. It's video game history.
Yeah,
it's very, very neat stuff.
Yeah, plus you get to see some of the more obscure things like, and this isn't super obscure, but a Virtual Boy, for instance.
Yeah.
Not everybody had one of those. Not everybody has seen one of those. Not everybody has had the chance to play one of those. So if you have one of those and it's sitting on your shelf, people do kind of look at it. Plus it's got that really cool red and weird look to it. And it's just like, oh, that's
what was the name
neat.
of that thing they had for Super Nintendo that was the robot? And remember,
Robbie.
That's for the regular Nintendo. That was for the original NES.
Is that what it was for? I couldn't remember. I was like trying
to, Rob, R-O-B.
And it was like terrible. It worked for like 1.5 games or something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It was like, and like you could spin. Wasn't it like you could spin tops or something? And
it had these little, these little spinny tops is probably the best way to put them. They were gyroscopic tops, and they could be spun by it and sit on the buttons, push the buttons on the thing.
It never worked.
And the whole point of it, the one game, Gyromite or whatever, Gyromite. The whole point was to raise and lower these walls. That you would play one side, and he would do the other side. Yeah. So it was just it was kind of a gimmicky thing, I think, and that came out with like the original system. That was like the first launch.
There was also I think it's called Stack Up was another of those games, even more obscure, but also used the Rob.
Oh man. You know, it'd be a good episode to talk about like obscure video game peripherals and talk about all the weird stuff that's come out over the years.
Well, because
that's
I
a future
think
topic
I
for
still
sure.
have that because I think I tried to sell it in a garage sale a long time ago, and people were like, "Eh."
Oh,
Well, you and I can talk about that one day, and I'll just have to buy it from you.
I told you I have. When you just brought up the Sega Dreamcast, I told you I have a Dreamcast in my closet, still shrink wrap, never opened.
I know.
Oh,
That they gave me,
And for some reason, you won't give it to me for free. I don't know why. I can't figure that out.
It's one of those things that I didn't like Dreamcast.
Was this one of the ones they gave out at E3? You have to talk
nodding.
into
He's nodding, everybody.
We're on a podcast, and he's nodding.
No, I didn't want anybody to know how valuable it really was. That was back.
I'll tell you this about the Dreamcast. I hated the controller for the Dreamcast. That was like really awkward to hold.
What's wrong with the controller?
It's so bulky.
It is weird.
Look, I know this isn't going to be something that the people see, but I've literally got my Dreamcast controller right here. This is comfortable. It's perfect.
Tiny little LED thing that really just like it showed a heart
VMU
on it.
right here.
The VMU.
You can play a game on that thing.
And but I do remember that back in the day when the video game business, when E3, that kind of stuff went, you always wanted to go because you came back with swag, man.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just T-shirts, man. You came back with motherboards and graphics and stuff, like 10, and then I'd come back to
boxes of games, too.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody. Yeah, they hand out games like candy, but they were on discs. They weren't always on boxes. And then I'd come back and half my guys at TRI used to be mad because I got to go to these big shows. They're the guys humping their ass off, coding all the games. I'm just chasing money and press stories, right? And so I'd say, oh yeah, I went to E3 and they're like, oh yeah, and you had so much fun and you went to all the big parties. And I said, yeah. And then look, and they'd be like, oh, I love you, man. You're the coolest, man. Is that a whole box of Creative Lab speakers? You're just like, yes. And I was like, now what I'm not telling you is the Klipsch PC speakers I kept in my office, but you guys get the Creative Lab ones. But anyway, back in the day when you used to get swag, but and then we used to do flight simulators. And so all the stuff that all of us used to collect, like, the desktop mount yokes with, any kind of your rudder controls for the ground, all that, or if you had driving games, and you had the total wheels with the shifters and stuff, that was back in the day where they used to clip to your desks. And it was like, and they weren't simulators, but they were dang close. And that I still have all those peripherals, not because I thought they would ever be worth any money, but they are just too stupid expensive to throw away. Because they're just, most people, like, you try to give them away, like, go try to give that to Goodwill. They'd look at you and say, no thanks, right?
So you have to be kind of a hoarder as well to be a collector, right? You have to be not willing to throw anything out.
Well, I think that's the difference, right? What makes a collector a hoarder and a hoarder a collector? It's kind of the definition.
I've seen some pretty intense collections. I've seen collections where people just have everything stuffed in their closet and they don't have it on display. Yeah. That to me seems like a hoarder kind of a thing where they're just keeping it for the sake of keeping it. You have to be able to show it off and tell people about it.
True.
Right?
Yeah, I think a hoarder would be classified as someone who, like you said, doesn't have necessarily an organization to it or a purpose for, having it, like presenting it or anything, but a collector. But then there's levels of collectors, just like Eric's been going through his different ideas of what collector is, from a monetary to just a personal, and an emotional connection, and a historical, and documenting history. It's even like what, like I do now with Special Reserve Games, right? Is like we're always trying to, I would say, preserve digital art. And because I've found that that's one of the things, when you look back on some of these video games, we talk a lot about the systems and the hardware and all that. Like, we always have that physical connection. The arcades, we always have that physical connection, but you don't always have that physical connection with each individual game, right?
Not anymore. Not when they're all available digitally and you can just download it, right?
So that's on your phone. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross. I mean, I still hate when people say, "Oh, I saw that game." I was like, "Where'd you play it?" "Oh, on my phone." I was like, "Oh, you didn't really play that."
It's not the same.
Play the game. You just kind of wasted your time at the bus stop.
Well, no, but even ports of like console games, like I got Grand Theft Auto. I think I've got like Vice City on my phone. You can play Knights of the Old Republic is one I played on my phone. It's not the same.
And then from a competition standpoint, I know for a fact that Fortnite Mobile, was never allowed in any form, with anybody of the big streamers or any kind of competition. So you couldn't play Fortnite Mobile against PC or console players because everyone knows that, it had assisted aiming. And
does it really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm gonna play Fortnite on my phone now.
Exactly.
I didn't know. That's going to do it for this episode of Games You Deserve. Thanks so much for listening. Let us know what you think of what we talked about today. You can follow us on social media. Links are in the description, or leave us a voice message. For Smitty and Erik, I'm producer Dan.
Game over.